What's up, everybody, and welcome to BioS 3 Raw TV. Today we've got a little story time. I'm going to tell you guys the story of Robert and Jason. Now, let me give you a little background on them. They were about 14 years old. Both were stricken with multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy, one of those ailments that doesn't allow you to have control over, like, feeding yourself, walking. You know, they couldn't communicate very well because they couldn't put words together. And the way that I met them was my mom at the time was working at Grace Barker Nursing Home in Warren, Rhode Island. And she came home from work one day and said, there's these two 14-year-old boys living at the nursing home. And I was like, nursing home? That's for old people. And so she wanted to explain that their mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, now the mother was the one who was taking care of them, all died within a week of each other. So basically everybody that, you know, was their world died. And the great-grandmother used to be in that nursing home. Once all three of them had passed away, the only living kin they had was an aunt who at the time had two children herself with the same ailment. So there was no way that she could take on the responsibility of four kids, all wheelchair bound, with the same thing going on. It was just too much for her to handle. So they would become wards of the state. And at this point, they had been through such tragedy that the caseworker said that, you know, we're going to have to split them up. We're not going to be able to find families that will be able to take care of both of these kids with ailments. It's going to be very difficult. So what happened was the nursing home agreed to let both of them live there together so they wouldn't have to be split up. And when they found a home for them, they could both go together. This was their solution to the problem, which was very, very nice of the nursing home because they'd been through so much to begin with. Could you imagine that, you know, they were twins, by the way. I don't know if I said this. They were twin boys. Could you imagine being pulled away from your twin after having everybody in your whole world who takes care of you, that you love, who dies? I mean, unbelievable, right? So my mom tells me these stories and tells me what great wrestling fans they are. They're big wrestling fans. They're Lucien Bagwell fans. So I'm like, you got to be friggin' kidding me. These kids, you know, they want very little out of life other than just to get up in the morning, go about their day, and go to sleep at night. And my mom said, that's my son. I'll talk to him and see if he'll come down and hang out with you guys. So my mom asks me if I'll go and spend an afternoon with these kids. Now, at the time, I'm on drugs. I'm taking painkillers. I drink a lot. I'm an asshole. Bottom line, I'm young. I'm a dickhead. I'm an asshole. But I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll go hang out with them. So we set the day. I don't remember what day it was, but I remember I was out partying late the night before. I was all fucked up. I got up feeling like shit. It's like, oh fuck, I gotta go hang with these kids now. And I remember going to like Toys R Us, and I bought a couple wrestling action figures, John Cena and Brock Lesnar, I think at the time, and a couple of these championship belt toys to bring to these kids because they're huge wrestling fans. So I'm like, you know what, I'll just stay for like an hour, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not a huge appearance, it's just hi to these kids, whatever. So I walk in there, and their uncle is there with their aunt, the one who has the other two children with the ailments, and a couple other kids from, you know, the family or whatever, and some of these nursing home people that work there. And there's these two kids in these motorized wheelchairs sitting there. And so they get these big smiles on their faces when I walk in the door. And me being the asshole that I was, went away immediately when I saw these kids smile. And they were just happy that I was there. They didn't care what was going on with them. They weren't thinking about their grandmother, their mother, and their great-grandmother. They were hanging out with Lucien Bagwell. Well, Lucien's not even a real person. So I watched some wrestling videos with them, sat and talked, answered all their questions, and then they're like, hey, you want to go to our room and play video games? So I was like, yeah, okay, what do you got? Wrestling video game. Of course, wrestling video game. So we go in there and I play, I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestling game. And, you know, they look at me and they're joking around. They say, don't let us win now. So I proceeded to beat the shit out of them in the game. Like, I fucked them up in the game for a while. And then it was time for them to rest. They had to take a nap. So it had been about 3 hours, 3.5 hours I was there. And at that point, that was all they could handle. Like, they had no more energy. They had to go down for their naps. And I remember leaving, and they were like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And we had eaten lunch together there and stuff. And I was like, "You know what, guys?" I said, when I'm in town and I'm not wrestling and stuff, I'll stop by and see you guys. I'll stop by and hang out and see how you guys are doing. Hang in there. Everything's gonna be okay. Things will work out. And then I left there that day with my girlfriend, and I felt just awful. I felt terrible because I'd walked in there with all the things that I had: 2 legs to walk on, can feed myself, muscle, strength, a small bit of fame from the wrestling thing, family that cared about me, and they had nothing, literally nothing but each other. And I was pissing and moaning when I walked in there and saw them, and they were fine and they were happy. And it kind of touched a nerve. And this is one of those life lessons that when you're younger, some of you younger guys who are watching this may not get. It may not click until something like that happens to you. It's like an epiphany. It just hits you in the balls and you go, holy shit, like I need to change my attitude. I need to change the way I look at things. I need to change who I am because I don't fucking like this right now. And I did. At that point I kind of turned the corner a little bit, so to speak, in who I was, in who I wanted to be. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be an asshole. I wanted to be somebody that, hey, I can walk in there and just say hi to these guys, and they're like, wow. And about maybe a month later, 2 months later, my mom comes home and said, they died. Both of them died in their sleep the same day. Fucking random, right? It was so weird. Like, how the fuck would they both die? And it's one of those things where, it's speculation. Like, well, one died and the other was laying there and said, I can't go on. So he died with him because all they had was each other. So you got 14-year-old kids who were fighting against all odds and wound up, in the end, all they had was each other. And their life ended at 14. And I'll tell you what, when I walked out of that nursing home that day, the kids were happy. Happier than most people that I see who have fucking everything. Happier than people that have families and money and fucking people who love them. Happier than just about anybody I've ever met in my life. They were happy with nothing except one another. Definitely an eye-opening experience. Definitely something that, to this day, a life lesson that I use. And a lot of times, my girlfriend Carrie will hear me say, like, she'll get upset about something, and, rightfully so. Most people would get upset about it, And I'll stop and say, really? In the big scheme of things, is it really that big of a deal? And, sometimes she'll just kind of look at me and be like, what? And that's what I'm talking about. That life lesson is, my car doesn't start. Fucking, okay, take a cab, we'll deal with it. There's things that piss you off on a daily basis or aggravate you or just kind of push your buttons, but in the grand scheme of things, those 2 kids and what I saw with my own 2 eyes makes a whole lot of things that I've run into in my life not a big deal. And that's why I'm able to brush so many things off, have thick skin, and not really worry about a lot of things. I have my worries, but things that really you shouldn't worry about, I don't. And this is why. BioStraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biostraining.com is the blog, and we're out.